We've got a Stag in the workshop. I'm just going to do a little bit of a carburettor tune-up. So I thought you might want to see this because a lot of people ask me a lot of questions about carburettors. But let's have a look at the car. Right, so this is the car I did the doors and the boot lid on. It's had a new hood that came from Southeast Trimming, Jim Van Jen. It's a beautiful job actually, I really like it. Jim puts a little bit of extra fabric around the back end here, but I think it looks beautiful. It's a lovely job, really nice job. It looks fantastic. The boot lid that I did, it's a nice sunny day today. That was the door work has settled in. Steve painted these. Steve looks really good. Right, and these are the carburettors. This is a Mark 1 car, so it's still got the tags and everything on them. So what the customer's basically said is that it is running idle speeds too fast. As you can see, it's automatic. It's got the overdrive cable on it. Running too fast. He's had to replace all the fuel lines. Might need to shorten this one a little bit because that's not going to help really, is it? And just give it an overhaul. So let me start him up first of all. See what's going on in here. Oh, unfortunately, that's shut nicely. Unfortunately, this has had one of those stick-on dash kits. Not anything to do with the customer. It was there really before he put it all together. Right. Choke is home, and you can see the idle speed is about 1200 RPM. I mean, that's going to clonk like I don't know what, isn't it? Feels a bit lumpy as well, so might just double check the ignition while we're here as well. But look at that for an idle speed, that's crazy. That is going to clonk horribly. Right, so we can fix that. Let's go back again. I had to close the door because otherwise it was going to clout that. There's a massive return spring on here as well, so I'm suspecting that's something to do with the fast idle. But what I'll do is I'll get myself ready, I'll get the air filter off, and I'll come back to you and let you know what it is we're going to do here. I've already sorted out what the fast running was. The choke was jammed on. So the choke was jammed on one carburettor. So I think that's one of the obvious fixes that I need to do here, because it's cable tied into position rather than getting the metal clips like this. I should have metal clips on there. I should have some of those. If not, we'll do something a bit better than the way it's set up currently. Right, I can do that. Let me carry on getting this. So basically getting the airbox off these is dead easy. Just undo the 3 bolts on each of the elbows, lift the airbox off complete with the elbows. It's the easiest way of doing it. Right, I got distracted because obviously that's what happens to me. So I think first and foremost, I like to route the fuel overflow down rather than up. So if it is going to overflow, it's not going to overflow into the air filter, because that being like that would overflow through the elbow and into the air filter. You end up with an air filter full of petrol. Would be my suggestion there. My fuel pressure test rig. So you get these things on eBay. Just get the carburettor pressure gauge, not the EFI one, because we really want to be measuring up to about 3 or 4 psi. And on this one, we can see that we're running about 3.7-ish psi. And all I've basically done is taken the fuel lead off the filter, and this wasn't done up tight, by the way, and then popped it back in there. You see the fuel pressure's dropping very, very slightly, down to about 3.5. I like to run 2.5 to 3, but that's not a disaster. Some of the modern carburettor pumps are putting out much higher pressure than that. Now, with its engine not running, but obviously the ignition on, I'm not getting a smell of petrol around here, so it would indicate that probably the fuel pressure is about right on this. But be aware, turn ignition off, be aware that I'll disconnect the battery now and do a bit of fuel work. Be aware that if you are getting overflowing carburetors, there's a possibility that the fuel pressure might be just a bit on the high side. You saw that choke actually fly off then as I did that, and the cable, the outer sheath on the cable is actually broken off, so we'll probably need to take the cable off, get rid of that piece, and find the proper clip to hold the cable in place, and then adjust the choke cable as is appropriate. Now both chokes are off, let's see what the idle speed is like now. I've still got quite a fast idle speed, haven't we? I think where I'm going to start with this, I'm going to take the dashbots off, because what I don't want to do is not understand where the baseline is. So by taking the dashbots off, the pistons out, I'm going to be able to baseline both of the carb needles, replace the O-rings, and then that gives me a start point. Oh yes. Let's have a little peer in here. These diaphragms don't look the best. That's been installed the right way around, which is good news. That's running quite rich, that is. You can see on the needle as well, there's quite a lot of shit on there. There is oil in it, look, it's all over my hand now. So let me get the other one out. Silly arse. And I think we'll get these things baseline. The inside of the carburetor looks quite good though. There is fuel around there, which might indicate it's either overflowing or the float height's set incorrectly. That one's drier. And you see that both needles have got completely different settings on them, which doesn't bode well really for having a balanced set of carburetors. Now, the tags are not entirely matched, so it's entirely possible that these are two different carburetors that have been kind of put together on a pedestal, but they're both 175s, they're both CD2S type carburetors. Neither has the vent pin on them, which will be right for the Mark 1 Stag, so they're not that far out, I'll be honest. But if someone's been in there and taken them apart, and I can't get them running right, then it's possible that the choke discs have been installed upside down. Not uncommon, folks. But what I'll do is I'll start with the basics first of all. So let me start with really getting these needles out and sorting that out. Cleaning my hands up. Relocation to the bench with coffee. So let's have a look-see now at these. These diaphragms are impossibly thin. The dash top is not the stepped variety that I had a problem with last time. I might see if I've got a better pair of diaphragms than these two. They're very, very, very thin. Oh look. Thank you, gravity. Never mind, shit happens. Okay, let's get the diaphragm off first of all before I damage it. It's just 4 screws hold these things on. These screws, by the way, shouldn't fall through the holes in the bottom of the diaphragm and the bottom of the piston. That's the way they're designed. They come off that way. Still making a horrific mess. Diaphragm is actually stuck. Yeah, the diaphragm was the right way round, which is good news. It's always a good start, but it's... I've never seen them where they're actually stuck on. Someone's put some well seal or something on there, I reckon. Okay, well, it's not torn. Right, now let's get this needle out. I want to see what the needle is. Check we've got the right adjuster. We've got a Stag adjuster in there, which is the hex key. get these adjusters. It's just a Stromberg, Stromberg adjustment tool. Strictly speaking, you're supposed to locate that pin into that slot to stop you tearing the diaphragm while you're adjusting, but I don't need to do that because there's no diaphragm on it. Right, well, I'm winding that and I'm not seeing the needle move. So it looks like the needle has become detached from the adjuster. Not uncommon, folks. So we'll undo the little grub screw, remove that completely. Correct use of a neon screwdriver. It's just the nearest one I had to hand, folks. Or you'll start screaming blue murder at me. Now, strictly speaking, that should come straight out. So that was obviously not attached onto the adjuster, which is not going to have helped it, is it really? Now, I want to change the O-rings on both of these. That needle is bent. Is it bent? It looks bent. Just to my mind, doesn't look right. Yes, it is bent. Well, that's not going to have helped it either, is it? So that's a fucked needle. I think I've actually got a spare needle as well. I've got spare carbs. I mean, the worst case scenario is I pull a used old stock needle out of a carburettor. Right, I need to get the adjuster out of there. Now, holding the adjuster in should be a star washer. There nearly always is. However, when you're pushing this thing out, it's likely to scratch the inside of the ball. Just be aware of that. There's probably not an awful lot you can do about that. I mean, some people talk about pushing them in and flipping them over and pulling the star washer out sideways, bollocks, all that. I've never yet had a carburettor hang up because the star washer has scratched the ball. But you could be, I could be being a ball. I could be a ball. And I've got these nice big punches here, courtesy of Dale. So what I'll do, it might need to be a bit, because the idea is you don't want to damage the thread on the end of the adjuster. So I'll get it as big as I possibly can. It's going to need a mallet. Actually, it's going to need a mouthful of coffee. So you don't want to go flipping berserk banging this thing out, but it does need to come out. Right, that is out. Okay, now you look down the inside of the ball there and I can see a couple of scratches on the inside of the ball which will come out with a bit of emery paper. There's the adjuster. There's the star washer. Don't forget the star washer, it's important. It holds the adjuster in place, mounts the needle. I know the needle is offset very, very, very slightly, but you can still see it's got a big bend about here, because I would expect the tip of the needle to move around like that, but I wouldn't expect the shaft to move around at a different angle to the tip. So the needle's bent. That is not going to help it. So that's carburettor number one. This one was the carburettor, the right hand driver's side carburettor. So really, it probably just needs another needle reassembling, baselining. Now, the rubber O-ring that causes so much bother when you put the oil in the top of the dashpot, can you see? You can. When you put the oil in the top of the dashpot and it disappears, the O-ring is on the adjuster. That's where the O-ring is, and that's the O-ring that goes. Okay, I've got a bag of those. So let me just pop all of these bits back in here, and I'm going to take the other carburettor apart and find out where we're going with that. You can see that that goes straight and then bends down. Nightmare. Right, one scrap needle. Let's look at the other one. So exactly the same procedure. This needle has gone quite a long way in, probably to compensate for the fact the other carb was running too loose. Screws are loose on the top. All the screws are loose. That's not going to have helped it either. Oh dear, 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 dear. People say that Strombergs are crap carburettors. I think the problem is that when ham-fisted gibbons have worked on them, this is not the current owner, or probably even the previous owner, but when ham-fisted gibbons have worked on them and incorrect parts have been fitted, then is it really the carburettor's fault? No, Richard, no it's not. I didn't check that was a, yeah, that was located in, so it was the right way round. However, this diaphragm is a completely different strength and structure to the other one. So just to look, one of them's made out of tissue paper and the other one's actually made out of some fairly substantial rubber. It's not going to help the balance, is it, folks? So let's just check to see whether this needle actually adjusts on the adjuster. Wow, it's very, very, very stiff. Let's see if we can wind it all the way off. It is moving. It's incredibly stiff. That's way too stiff for now. Get the grub screw out because I can just wind the needle straight off the end. Don't lose these. I have got some spares of these and you can buy them. So all my carburetor parts I buy from a company called Berlin. People have asked and that's where I get them from. Right, wound it in, wind it all the way 8. So what should happen is, oops, the adjuster just came out of its hex head then. And I've got plenty of spare carburetors that if anything is broken in here, then I just replace it. Right, there comes the needle. The needle is now proud of the base. Probably be able to pull that out, we can. Okay, that's got quite a lot of corrosion and pitting on it. What I will do in a minute is I'll double check the reference numbers on the carburetors. Make sure that the pin references are correct. And again, we need to knock this adjuster 8. There'll be some people out there absolutely fucking horrified. Richard, you ham-fisted gibbon. Well, it's the only way I know to get the fucking things out. It's gone about halfway up. There it goes. There's the adjuster. There's the star washer. There's a load of lumps of metal, which I'm rather hoping are just, they're not off the inside of that. Where have they come from? That's a worry. Right, are they magnetic? No. So they're probably bits off the inside of here, or bits off the adjuster. I reckon they're bits off the adjuster. The adjuster's chewed. No. So this is why the adjusting tool wasn't fitting correctly into here. It's because the adjuster's been chewed. The bits off the adjuster. Oh, that's not great, is it? Doesn't go in properly. I have got more adjusters, that's not really a problem. Certainly have this car up and running today. Right, so they're both correct needles for the Stag. They're both B1 AQs, which is good. Is this needle got any life left in it at all? We know one of them is fucked. There's no point trying to straighten these things, by the way. It's just wasting your time. My concern is that the jet will also be worn. All I'm using here is a bit of steel ball to clean up the needle, and then really I'm looking for ridges. It's not the best needle out there, but it's probably serviceable. I've seen a lot worse. So I need to find some B1 AQ needle. In fact, you could see they're different colours. This one here, I don't know if you can see, but the surface is pitted. So I think both needles are scrap, if I'm brutally honest. This one's bent, but looks to be in reasonable order. There's a big bend there, right there. Going to go on and 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 on about the bend in the needle. Right, let's go find some bits and then I'll put these back together again. So I'm going to need one adjuster, pair of needles, and ideally a pair of diaphragms. There you go. A couple of brand spanking new B1AQ needles I had in stock. Pair of diaphragms. These come from Berlin, these ones, as did those, and a used old stock adjuster. So let's start by, well, we're going to build one at a time, because I'm putting new needles in. I might as well just build each carburettor dashpot up with the new diaphragm. We'll dump the old diaphragms. I can't see that that is going to be much use. Now, the only problem we might have here is these new diaphragms don't like the step. How's that got the step on it? This is my handy sheet, by the way. I found this online ages and ages and ages ago. It just gives me an indication. So if I was to look at the tags on these things, it does tell me these are 1970, 1971 Stag carbs, 3382, 3382, 71, which is bang on target for the age of the car. So the CD175 CD2 SEVs, and the needle should be a B1AQ. Okay. The only thing we haven't really done yet is look too deeply into the float chamber, but I'm not going to do that unless I have to. So we'll see if we can tune them up first of all. If we can't, then I'm going to take the pedestal off. I don't want to be going too deep just yet, because we found that many things wrong that we might as well see if we can fix the things that are wrong. There's no indication that the carbs are flooding. I think that left-hand carb, where there was fuel coming through the jet hole, was purely because the needle was so far up inside the dashpot that even at idle, it would have struggled. Okay, so yes, I'm going to go and get my O-rings. It's never good when the O-ring actually snaps, because it's so brittle when it comes out, is it really? So yeah, both original O-rings that came off the carburetor set are as crunchy as I don't know what. That's the one that came off my replacement adjuster, because one of these adjusters, as you remember, was chewed up on the top. So that is rubbish. We've got the replacement adjuster, and then I've gone through my Imperial O-ring box and found something that is a very, very, very similar size, not only to the original, and these probably are original O-rings, but also to the one that came off the replacement. So it's just a case really of slotting these over the top. Okay, dead easy fit. We can bring some life back into these. It will slow the amount of oil that disappears out of the dashpot. It's still a service item. You still need to check the dashpots. I would normally expect my dashpots to be empty after about maybe 400 miles or so. Just, it's the nature of the beast. I tend to use brain's not working at all today, Richard, is it? I tend to use an engine oil rather than anything else. So it's like a 2050 multi-grade in the dashpots, just for convenience more than anything else, because it's just so easy to kind of locate it and find it. Right, now let's put adjuster and star washer in. What happened to star washer? There he is. There's star washer. Now, star washer is dished. I generally put them in dish down, so the bottom of the dish going down. But what effectively you want to do is a little bit of lube. Oily bird, there we are. So if I was to fail, there we are, that'll do. Pop that in the top of the piston, put the star washer over the top of it, find a suitable drift. It's going to be a larger drift this time, because obviously I want the drift to go down and push the star washer down as well. And more or less it should actually just, that drift might be just a tiny bit too big. Might have just gone a bit berserk there, Richard. You don't need anywhere near the force to put it back in as you did to take it out. And really you want to be careful that if there were any burrs, and I did check and there weren't, then you don't want to be tearing the seal. Now, you can see the adjuster down at the bottom there. Now I get my adjuster tool, make sure it locates, make sure it turns nice and easily, and it does. Then I'm going to locate the needle onto it. Okay, now the idea is you wind the adjuster and the needle right together. So I'm holding the needle head, winding the adjuster right in until it didn't want to go any further. Just pulling the needle right onto the thread, and I think that has done it. Now it's done that, now I want to locate, so I can see on the end there, I can see where the grub screw goes in. I'm going to rotate that around, put the grub screw back in, which is there. Grub screw goes in. I can see that's now located in there. Now, when I wind the needle, rather than it rotating backwards and forwards, it will go in and out. Okay? So really I'm looking for it to go in, which it does when I'm winding the needle. So the needle's going backwards and forwards. Now what I tend to do is I level that with the bridge on the base of the piston. So it's exactly, if I do them both like that, then I adjust both carburetors as I need to. Okay, that needle is now in, grub screw is in. Don't go fucking nuts doing these grub screws up, by the way, they don't need it. They're just in there. Next we've got the diaphragm. It's a pair of new Berlin diaphragms. They've got lots of nice powder on them. I don't know if you can do anything with it, but it keeps them nice and supple anyway. And these aren't old either, because some of these parts, oh yeah, make sure you get the tab in the slot. Don't do that, then you know you're never going to get the carbs running right. And that goes in there, and 4 little screws. This isn't a carb overhaul, this is just a carb service, by the way, just in case you're all moaning about, we could have cleaned it. No, this is just a carb service. And make sure they don't cross, do them up. Again, don't need to be thread locked, don't need to be biblically tight, but just do them up, just enough. Alright, you're not going to hang off it with a bloody torque wrench. People ask me, you know, what torque do they need to be done up to? Fuck all. Why did that bit out? Right, now they're all done up. Diaphragm's looking beautiful. Spring goes back on the top. Dash pot goes back on the top. And really what I'm looking for now is to get a nice fluid action for the thing. If I hold it upside down, goes under gravity, nice and smooth. Okay, that's one done. Now, one thing I've just noticed, has this one got a step on it? It has. This is the inconsistency you get now with these dashpot tops, that one's got a step on it and the other one hasn't. So what I need to basically do is to file this inner lip off the dashpot cover, otherwise it will not work with that diaphragm. Let me, because that's ever so easy to do. Let me show you. This style of top you can't get anymore, and this style of diaphragm, the very thin diaphragm that goes with it, you can't get anymore. So this is kind of like Hobson's choice now. Hands up. That one I've just done. This one I'm going to do, so you can very clearly see the second step there. That's all I'm going to take off. It's dead easy, really not difficult. Obviously I've cleared everything else out of the way. Standard metal file, and just working slowly and across the face. I just file until the lip is almost gone. No machine tools, nothing other than my eye. You can see there, that's level, that's almost there. Nothing other than my eye. Put you around here so you can actually see what's going on, eh? because I'm right-handed. No real force going into that, and you can see that's a nice flat surface now. I'm just rotating it around while I file it, and it just takes it off. And then I finish up in a minute with a little bit of wet and dry paper, just to make sure there's no burrs or anything on the surface that are going to cause the diaphragm to wear. Now, on one set of carburetors I did do, let me just finish doing this, then I can talk. One set of carburetors I did have to take this inside edge off. You see how much swarf is in there, so all that needs to come out. Bit of 240. And it's ever so soft, this aluminium. And it's just a case really of just going over it and just finishing the job. And it just allows you to put the more robust and thicker diaphragms in place that are the best non-Chinesian ones available. Finished. Well, after a clean it'll be finished. And it's back together again. So we're about an hour and a half in on this so far. It's all back together, and when I put... That's pretty spectacularly nasty, I might change that over. Reliability issues there. When you're putting the dash box back on again, just make sure that the piston drops down with a nice thunk, yeah? If it doesn't, then investigate why, because the carbs will never work. Okay? I've not shortened this, I've just rerouted it a little bit. I don't want it to interfere with the air filter, so I'll put a P-clip up here just to hold this up and out of the way. Customer can sort that out. Now, the other thing I noticed while I was here, and the customer did suggest to me that he'd have problems with some of these knuckles, is this linkage up here doesn't seem to be entirely correct. Now, if I look at the manual, I'm going to go to 15, sorry, evaporation, the bloody page has just disappeared. It was there just now. I want to go to section 15. 15 is fuel. Go back to the beginning, Richard. Fuel system 19. Go down to the bottom here, page 19 or section 19, and then I think I've gone to about 1915. Here we are. This gives you the gap that you should be experiencing between. So point A is the one we're looking for here. So you have to adjust the rods in order to get that gap right. Setting control linkage, so you remove the air cleaner, blah 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 blah. Remove the bucket plug and tamper-proof sleeve. Right, okay. Use airflow meter. Right, we'll get that in a second. Where's the bloody measurement? Oh, here we are. Adjust the operating rod to fit the butterfly spindle lever without altering the engine speed or equalise breathing. Ensure the gap of 30 to 60 thou or up to 1.5 mil exists between the slave lever and the driving tag. So that needs to be 1.5 mil there. And at the moment, I'd say that's about 3 or 4 mil. So I want to take these knuckles off, because really in order to tune the carburetors, I want to have the carburetors running independently of each other. Oh, fucking tight. Right, there you go. So that has gone on too long, I think. Very, very, very strong throttle return spring there for some reason. Now, the only other thing I do is, because we haven't got the air filter on there, we haven't got all of the vacuum set up for the air filter. So I've just got a little short length of fuel hose with a screw in the end of it to wedge over that, so there's no unusual air leaks. What I'll also check is that the vacuum advance is working. breathes right through that, so vacuum advance is dead on this. I haven't got one of those. I'll let the customer know though that it's going to need an ignition overhaul as well. So we're not going to go too far with this, but we can get the carburetors running a bit better at least. Okay, I'm going to have to move the camera now because when I start the engine up, it's directly above the engine fan and I don't want to break my camera. As you can see, really all I've done here is remount the carburetors, disconnected one carburetor from the other so they are independent of each other, and I'll get it all set up now. We'll probably find the idle speed will be fairly normal now, and if that's the case, then I shall start messing around with the mixture and then balance it backwards and forwards. Now, I've never really done this in any massive detail, so what I might have to do is video it and then talk over it, or put some text on the screen, because you won't hear me because the engine will be running. Well, already the idle speed's right down. Worried about how close that might be. So that is right on the radio. Yeah, talk to the customer about that as well. Right, what I really need to do next, I need to get my tools really sorted out. That hasn't done too badly. I mean, we're only running on one carburetor at the moment, but I can. That's the nice thing about separating the two carburetors. You can actually operate each carburetor independently of it. And then when it's all done, I'll adjust this linkage with a 1.5mm drill bit wedged in there to get the throttle linkage set up so it doesn't increase the idle speed. Dead easy. But if you don't know, then it's not dead easy. Reasonably steady for an out-of-the-box kind of setup. I've got my flow meter, just going to wedge that in there. That's reading 10, just under 11. And I do it on that one, that's reading quite a lot higher. So that carburetor is drawing more air than this one. So what we'll do, we need to fiddle around with the idle screws. The idle screw, you can just about see the idle screw down there on the tip of my finger, maybe. It's got a spring round it. I need a flat blade screwdriver. So what we'll do now is, I think we'll knock this one down to get the airflow balanced to 10.5 and 11. So if I turn this idle down, just a quarter of a turn. Now we've got on that one. Still a bit on the high side, might have to turn the other one up. It's down to about 11.5 now, with more or less now we are with 3 of the throttle stop. So we just engage it back up the throttle stop. Come around this side. Turn this one up. Revs are currently 800, but they will come down. So this thing needs. This thing will need an ignition overhaul. Both drawing 11 now. And the idle speed is 800. That will change. Bring this down just a tiny bit. $10.5. well. Right, what we need to do, I think, is get the mixture set correctly next. So really, what I'm looking for the mixture, take that out, is to just lift up the piston, the width of the screwdriver. Nice narrow screwdriver. Stalled, it's running too lean. So what I'll do is I will engage the tool and the lever, and I'm going to wind it half a turn clockwise. And I'll do each one. Now it's going to need a little rev afterwards. Right, so clear it through. Reset the idle speed again afterwards, because the thing's running too lean, it's impossible to work out exactly where it's going to go with one shot. And then we'll try again. Still too lean. So basically what we're looking for is the engine revs to rise very, very, very slightly and then settle again. So I'm going to go for another half a turn. Idle speed's crept up to about 900. The dips, getting a lot closer. We still need to do the balance yet. What we're doing at the moment is just setting the mixture on each of the car brushes. Another half a turn. Bang on. That was beautiful. This one, another quarter of a turn, I reckon. Right, let's see if we can bring this idle speed down a little bit. Beautiful. That's beautiful. Let's say that basically both those car brushes now are running very good mixture. So what we need to do now is to check on the airflow. So I'm currently running 10 on that one and 11 on that one. Turn this one down a quarter of a turn on the idle speed. Actually, I wonder if this lever is too bloody long as well. I cannot get the idle speed down on this, but when I back the throttle speed screw, and this is the throttle speed screw I'm on right now, and I get hold of the shaft, it's got up and down play in it. I can actually move the shaft up and down. So either the shaft or the bushes are shagged out. You can see the shaft, when I put the screw down, the shaft is actually moving down before it starts to rotate. So realistically these carbs need a rebuild. I can balance them the best I can and I can get it running smoother. We're October now. I suspect the car's going to come off the road, in which case I'll talk to the customer about getting the carbs rebuilt. I don't believe there's going to be an awful lot more than that I can actually do, because I've got the mixture right. I'm happy with the mixture, but I cannot get the idle speed down, and that's largely because there's too much air getting in around warm throttle spindles, etc. The other thing I probably would need to check on if they're going to come apart is things like the temperature compensators. One thing that's definitely not helping: temperature compensators that are actually wedged open. Both of them. They're both wide open. Cool them down. Neither of these temperature compensators is set correctly. They should be closed by default and open up as the engine warms up, or as the ambient temperature warms up. You can see both of those are absolutely, couldn't be any wider open if they tried. So I think someone's been in here and done the nuts up on the inside way too tight. So I'm going to set these back. It's difficult to balance them. I can do my best. Workshop type balance. Again, there's videos on this on my channel, which I'll refer to later on. But yeah, that's definitely not going to have helped in any way. So I'm going to get those sorted out now. Right, to the bench. Coffee. Oh, I took the horn off because one of the screws went flying over here. As I took the horn off, one of your connectors broke. Fix that for you. That's not an issue. Free of charge as well. Right, now one of these had a fibre washer, the other one didn't. So I think one of the big problems again is that someone's been in here. Someone's been in here fiddling, which is hardly surprising because the car is 51 years old, 52 years, 71 this one, 51 years old. Right, let's clear a bit of space up here. As you can see, I've been doing other things. Right, click, 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 rattle, 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 click, 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 click. If this works, I shall celebrate with a coffee. Right. So we go with the one, this is the driver's side right-hand carb. That's too fat for that. Let's use the trusty neon screwdriver. You don't need a neon screwdriver to do this. It's just the one that happened to be on the bench at the time I was pulling this apart. My tidy bench. There was no O-ring in the bottom, and there was no O-ring round the shoulder of one of them. So we need to sort both of those issues out as well. See, both of them are free to move. I just think they haven't been adjusted. Now I'm going to take these things right apart, because probably don't need to. What I'm more inclined to do is actually wedge them tight closed, because I think the car's going to have to come back for carb rebuild. But I can send it on its way behaving far better than it is currently. So just by turning that nut half a turn, it's closed it. I'm inclined to actually close both of them off. It's one of those bloody features that's supposed to improve the reliability. So if I do this so it's just closed like that at this ambient temperature, and this one is just closed, so I can see the plunger moving through the hole here, you see. So it's a very much a cack-handed, rudimentary adjustment of these things. We'll see if it improves it. Both being wide open will not have helped the mixture. I did see on one of the American TR6 I think it was forums that someone had worked out how to bypass this completely. They are a bit of a faff, these. We'll see if it's improved it. If it hasn't, then we've made it no worse, really, have we, by fixing these little problems. I had to break open one of my rebuild kits because basically these little flat rubber washers go on the tip here and seal the end of the temperature compensator into the hole, and these big flat washers go round the body of the temperature compensators. Now, I have used O-rings in this position before, but I think these flat ones allow the thing to seat better, and then that goes on the end and inside the owl. So I'm going to go and put this lot back together now, and we'll see if it makes any difference. Now, bear in mind, I have not balanced these. I did just warm them up in water, and they did both open at the same time, and they're both not wide open at this sort of temperature. Maybe I'll give each one just another quarter of a turn, just so that it kind of like, you know, they're not going to open up in the middle of winter, because I really don't think that these things should be wide open when it's, what, 12 degrees out here at the moment. What are we? I'll tell you exactly how warm it is here at the moment. It says on my right now it is dun dun dun, just catching up, please hold, 15 degrees. Yeah, it's a bit on the excessive side, isn't it? So if I go another quarter of a turn, that holds it a bit tighter. But like I say, these carbs are going to have to come back for a rebuild at some point, or another set's going to have to be put on. But I'd actually like to rebuild these carbs because I think they're fairly original to the 1971 car. And if that is the case, then there's a fair chance that it's about time they were rebuilt at 51 years old. But then I think someone's been in here before, because diaphragms have been changed and needles have been changed and needles are bent and etc, etc, etc. So let's just see what this does now. I'll pop this back together, refit them to the car, and we'll take it from there. That's all I've done there. That's all I did, was to sort those temperature compensators out. So now you can go back to the air balance on the carburetors now. So all I'm doing here, see what sort of air we've got going in there. Make sure the needle's actually on the carburetor. So that's on it, 10. Let's go up a tiny bit. Oh, that sounds a million times better. A million times better. The problem is now, having revved that, the revs have gone up. This is where we've got a problem, I think. We've got a problem with the overall air. We're at 800 at the moment. Check this again. Just in case you don't have one, pop rivet will do the job. There we are, so we'll put that in there. And then I need to line that up onto there, so I need to turn this another turn. See? That's it. Hold the pop rivet just in case it goes flying anywhere. Let's take the pop rivet out. Fix that on. Might need the bigger pliers, which I'll put somewhere. So, summing up, yes, the carburetors are worn. However, by eliminating just a couple of faults with the carburetors, bent needles, dodgy, this is so much better. Runs beautifully. Right, now, no clonk and no clonk, not lurching. So the idle speed is about right. Okay, just driven it around the block. It's got good pickup. The carbs will need rebuilding, but for the time being, they're more than good enough. My biggest concern on this is that the vacuum advance is dead on the distributor. So that's probably the next thing that the owner is going to have to bring the car in for. But overall, yeah, it's not mine, it's a customer's, but it drives beautifully. Anyway, he's on his way back now.